you see in her face, the mirror of your dream. Make believe I'm everywhere, hidden in the light. Listen on the pages is the answer to a never-ending story.
Hello and welcome to Wycombe High's Into the Sixth Live. My name is Edie, I'm the head girl here at Wycombe High School and I'll be your host for this evening, one of the most important nights of the school year. Thank you so much for joining us. Tonight is all about giving you, the students and your parents watching at home, an overall guide to the amazing sixth form experience here and help you to discover the many reasons why Wycombe High could be the perfect choice for you. And who better to tell you what it's like here in our sixth form and help answer your questions later than the three deputy head girls, Charlotte, Grace and Janani, who, as you can see, are next door in another room. Welcome guys, please introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Charlotte.
Hi, I'm Janani.
And hi, I'm Grace.
So in a nutshell, what is the sixth form life like here at Wycombe High?
I'd say it's very unique. It's different to other schools because we are pushed to the best of our abilities. We are a really high achieving school, and although they want us to be the best that we can be, they give us the best support when we're struggling, and they don't push us too much, and they always make sure that we are cared for and supported.
Yeah, on top of that, I guess the relationship you develop with your teachers is absolutely incredible at sixth form because you're not having, you're having more lessons with them and more one-to-one time with them. They really understand you as a student and you just feel more comfortable, and they do treat you like an adult, which has its perks.
So what would you say to year 11 student thinking of studying A-levels here?
So definitely to go off what you enjoy. You'll be told it 100 times to pick your subjects, not for your teacher and not for, you think it will be good for one career or something like that, but you spend so much time doing one subject a week and you really need to think about what you're going to be doing, because when you do it, you'll do wider reading around it, you become really involved in it. In subjects such as politics, you have to be aware of it all the time. It's not necessarily something you go into the lesson, you have your BBC News notifications on, you keep on top of things. And to do really well in them, the best way to do it is to really enjoy them. Yeah. So picking them off what you love, what you think you're passionate about is definitely the most important to keep you motivated.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And if you do have a career in mind, I do suggest looking into it over the summer and making sure you know what A-levels are required. For example, for medicine, usually chemistry or biology is required. So just check in and see what is required, just so you know what you're getting yourself into.
So also on our panel to answer your questions tonight are three of the senior staff at Wycombe High. Our head teacher, Mrs. Nicola Renyard, assistant head teacher, Miss Alice Drysdale, and our head of sixth form, Mrs. Sarah Ellis. And if you have any questions for our panel, please ask away. All you have to do is click the Q&A icon, which is usually at the bottom of your screen. Submit your question and we will endeavour to answer all of you in our question and answer session, which is coming up shortly. If there are some questions we don't have time for, Mrs. Ellis will follow up via an FAQ on our website, wycombehighschool.com, after the event. But before then, Mrs. Renyard, perhaps I can start by asking you, what do you think sets Wycombe High School apart?
Thanks, Edie. Well, very, very warm welcome to everybody who's logged in this evening. I should probably just introduce myself very briefly before I answer Edie's question. I'm Nicola Renyard, head teacher, and I've been at the school since September, so it's still a very new environment for me too. What I think sets the sixth form apart, and I suppose I'm quite uniquely placed to answer this question, because in my previous posts in other schools, I've actually been a head of sixth form, done Mrs. Ellis's job in another local girls' grammar school. I think what really sets us apart here at Wycombe High is that idea that we look beyond. The opportunities that are available for students studying our sixth form are so vast, and beyond the realms of your imagination. And I think I've been particularly struck by the extracurricular opportunities, the opportunities for student leadership, and obviously we have our ambassadors here leading this afternoon on this call. But that student leadership really filters down to lots of different levels in the school. And I think by extension of that, something that's particularly unique about Wycombe High School is how much emphasis we place on student voice. And as sixth formers, as those students who are right at the very top of the school, be they students who we've had with us for the last 5 years or joining us new into year 12, are absolutely front and centre in leading the way and being role models for our other students.
Thank you. And Mrs. Ellis, is there anything you'd like to add about your vision for the sixth form and us as students?
So good evening, everyone. I'm Mrs. Ellis. I'm head of sixth form. For me, sixth form isn't just about academic potential and academic achievements. I'm very much focused on the idea that we are making students independent and ready for the next stage of their lives. Sometimes I talk to students about it being a sandwich, and the bottom layer being the compulsory schooling, and then the middle bit of the sandwich is the A-levels and the extracurricular activities they do. So the filling is those bits that students put in to really kind of make that sandwich really bulky and tasty. And then the top slice is actually the future aspirations. So as sixth formers, what we're trying to do is to make students ready to go on to that next stage of their lives, and to really make sure that they're independent, empowered, they're finding their feet, and they're working out what really they want to do with their lives. And we do that for a variety of different ways and means, all in a safe and supportive environment. Sixth form is definitely somewhere to learn, and that's not just academically. It's about their personal aspirations and so on as well. And I sometimes talk about it, it's like them growing into their favourite shoes, really. So sixth form is a lot. It's not just about academic potential and achievement. It's really about making them into young adults of the future.
And of course, I would agree. One of the things I like about our sixth form is the broad range of subjects on offer. So again, for you, Mrs. Ellis, what would you like to say to Year 11 students watching tonight with their families about our A-level courses? And I know it's hard, but could you give us an overview of the 23 subjects on offer?
So like Katie's just said, there are 23 subjects on offer. They are all those subjects are full A-level subjects, but we also have 2 additional AS level 3 courses, which is in core maths and EPQ. And one of those subjects, further maths, can actually be taken as a full A-level, but also as an AS qualification as well. So all of our subjects are really about breadth, and we don't ask students to choose their options from option blocks. What we do is ask students to select the options that they want to do, and then we try to fit our timetable around that. And generally that means that most students can actually retain that breadth, so they can do a variety of different subjects. They can be very closely allied, but equally they can be quite different subjects. And I think that's a real strength of the sixth form, that we have a student, for instance, wanting to go on to medicine, so doing biology and chemistry, but equally following their passion with French as their third A-level. So we have a variety of different subjects. We do require students to gain a grade 5 in English and maths to qualify for the sixth form. And most of those subjects are looking at a grade 6 in English language for an essay-based subject, around about a 7 for a science subject. And there are some qualifications. So for instance, if you want to do economics, then you would be looking at a grade 7 in maths. If you want to do further maths, for instance, you would have to get a grade 8 in mathematics at GCSE. So we really encourage students to choose whatever subjects they want to do, and whatever combination suits them is right for them. But there are a couple of things that we need to be aware of. If students want to study physics, we insist that they study maths A-level alongside that. And that is to help and support them with the content of the physics A-level. We don't allow students to study business and economics, and that is because universities don't recognise those 2 subjects as separate subjects. So a university might actually see those as just being 2 A-levels rather than being separate A-levels. And the other thing we do insist is that actually students consider 3 options. So 3 A-levels is actually an ideal combination alongside an enrichment subject. But for some students, we are aware that 4 might be suitable for them. But generally, it is important to remember that universities will only ever look at 3 subjects. And so we really do encourage students to consider doing 3 plus an enrichment, and really having time to develop those personal qualities alongside their studies as well. So wide breadth of subjects. We look forward to that diversity in subject areas that students choose, because that also goes along to provide students with opportunities moving forward that are both diverse and fulfilling in terms of what they want to do. So all the information about those subjects is on our website, together with entry requirements for each of those subjects, which can also be found in our digital brochure, which is on our website from today as well.
Thank you again, Mrs. Ellis. And Ms. Drysdale, can you tell us a bit about the extracurricular activities here at Wycombe High School and the huge number of clubs and societies on offer here? More than 100, I think.
Absolutely. It's very evenly spread. It is 20 or more a day, and there are many to offer. And when students are in the 6th form, they might well be involved in the club, but they also might well be leading the lower school clubs as well. So there's a real leadership opportunity for that. And I thought we might get a question about that from one of the parents, but you beat them to it, Edie. So I actually printed off our list, and this is just Monday. So Monday is, here we go: cheerleading club, year 7 football, year 9 to 13 badminton, year 9 hockey club, orchestra, film for thoughts, Key Stage 3 drama, year 10 to 13 biology society, year 10 to 13 debate club, astronomy club, art and fashion, psychology society, Spanish speaking, senior choir, and the squash club. So that's Monday. And the other days are very similar to that. So just as many. So lots of opportunities. Some are subject-based, some are not subject-based, some are well-being, some are just taking you further in super curricular like MedSoc. And then, but there's the art and well-being group as well, who just, doing that for the joy of it. So there's all sorts, there's something for everyone. And we're always really willing to hear from students who have got a good idea and want to set up their own ones.
Perfect, thank you. Now going back to our student panel, Charlotte, Grace and Janani, what subjects are you studying and how have you found the subject courses and the way they're taught here at Wycombe High?
So I think all 3 of us take psychology. Alongside that, I do PE and history. We're all quite different from each other. However, a common trait is that before you go into the classroom, you'll know what you're going to cover. So it gives you an opportunity to pre-read. And another common theme with all of my subjects is the wider reading, which doesn't really feel like extra work because I chose A-levels that I really enjoy. I have that motivation to delve into that wider reading and explore it further.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I, alongside psychology, also take biology and chemistry. And the biggest thing that I have learned, especially 6th form wise, A-level wise, is that it's very independent. However, as Charlotte said, they give you the structure of the lessons ahead of time so you can pre-read. And you know the structure, which I think is really important. So you know what's coming up, you can prepare yourself, and then you're ready to learn and ask questions. So you're more prepared for the lessons. And I think that is just a really good benefit of A-levels.
Yeah, so I do psychology, politics, business, and then I did core maths last year. And I found that my subjects have quite different paces. They learn in different ways. So politics, I'll walk into the classroom and it will be a discussion about the news. If anyone has any thoughts, if anything wants to debate anything out, it will start there and go from there. Whereas a psychology lesson might start with a recall task or something like that, more straight into content. And you've done more pre-reading for psychology than I might have done for politics. It's more about just keeping up with what's going on. So definitely the pace of lessons like that is very different. And taking core maths last year meant doing 3 more essay-based subjects, psychology and business being more mixed, but definitely politics is heavily essay. It was a really nice change to go into a maths classroom and do that. So definitely when you pick your options, it's nice to have a bit of variety. And when you're stepping into the classroom, obviously your teachers teach in different ways and subjects take courses differently. And I think having some variety in that was really nice last year.
Yeah, I agree. And I think me and Charlotte also took the external project qualification. And especially for me, because I take such STEM heavy subjects, the EPQ was a really nice relief and calming subject where I could just write essays and enjoy myself. So I definitely agree with Grace. Variety is really, really important.
Yeah, I did an EPQ purely because I just wanted to go and explore subjects that I really enjoyed. I did mine in sports nutrition, and everything that I found out, I've been able to apply into context actually across all of my A-levels. So as long as, yes, it was hard and a lot of independence at the very start, but I really utilized that and it's helped me so much today.
I actually heard Charlotte's presentation at the end of her EPQ, and it was very interesting. And if you had to single out one thing about your experience studying A-levels here, what would it be?
Oh, one single thing. Well, I really, really do love the relationship I have with my teachers now. Because I'm an athlete outside of school, I sometimes do struggle with time management, and just having that communication with your teachers, whether it's like, I don't think I can meet this deadline, or I'm really struggling on work, they will make the time for you. They're A-level teachers. They want to also be challenged. They want to provide help just that extra step further. And that's really benefited me.
Yeah, on that with teachers, what Charlotte said about the relationship with teachers changing, people tell you it changes, but it's definitely more they're there to support you. Teachers at A-level really are there to help you, and you have to take advantage of that, because you can go to them at any time about anything, whether you're stressed about a job or you have a question to do with your subject. There's so much support when you're at your A-levels, and your teachers, you really do have that different relationship with. And doing a mix of subjects is definitely really good to have that relationship with your teachers, be able to speak to them at any time. They understand what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I think one specific benefit about being at Wycombe High is that we genuinely do have the best teachers, the most knowledgeable teachers, and they can genuinely answer any question. So you can go to them with anything and they will just give you the best advice, the best support. So I think that's a really big benefit.
Thank you for that. I would agree with everything that was just said. So just to let you all at home know, you can watch short introductory videos for all 23 A-level subjects on offer here at Wycombe High on the sixth form page of our website, wycombehighschool.com, where you can also read and download our A to Z subject guide with more details about all our A-level courses, as well as a digital online version of our sixth form brochure. And if you're a student at another school and you want to apply to study A-levels here, our website is also where you'll find an online application form. The website is nice and easy to remember. It's simply wycombehighschool.com. Now, as you can probably tell from what you've heard already, the students and teachers alike are extremely proud of the engaging sixth form experience on offer at Wycombe High. And this evening, we want to give you as much information as possible and for you to have your chance to ask absolutely any question you may have. You can do so by using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. So if you do have a question, please get typing. A couple more questions for our teachers with us tonight. Can you tell us a bit more about the kind of support for students that's in place at Wycombe High, both academically and pastorally, particularly for sixth formers?
So our academic and pastoral support is inextricably linked. So in order to be able to support students academically, we're very aware that sometimes there are other needs that need to be addressed and so on. So we have a head of year system whereby the head of year will support that student academically and pastorally. So we currently have a head of year 12 and year 13, and myself as head of sixth form and the head of year is supported by what we call the Miller Mum, Mrs. Windsor, who is our sixth form student manager. So there's a variety of different people to talk to. There is usually always somebody on hand for them, and it's very much an open door policy. So students can come and speak to us at any time. We have been here for some time. We're all parents, so we've been through many, many different experiences ourselves. So actually there isn't anything really that we haven't heard of or seen before. As the students themselves have said, that the support at subject level is very, very strong, and we would always encourage students to approach their teachers in the first instance, and we do want to have a really strong relationship with parents, but we always encourage students to go and do that first, because really often a situation can be sorted out in a matter of minutes rather than a student coming home and worrying and talking to a parent about it. So we generally we try to encourage students to do that, and obviously if there is something that needs a little bit more support and so on, we have a team of people and strategies that we can put in place. And actually the key to all of it is that we want our students to succeed. So whatever we need to do, we will go out of our way to do that, and we do that with the students' best interests at heart and so on. So there's lots of avenues for support. They each have a tutor where they will have a one-to-one session with their tutor every half term. So there's lots of opportunities for them to share information, but generally just come and knock on the door. There's always someone to listen if they need some support.
I know that I am almost in Mrs. Ellis's office, I think at least once a day for every little thing. So yeah, everything that Mrs. Ellis has just mentioned, it applies every single day at sixth form. And for everyone watching who's going to apply, what's the procedure? How do they go about it?
So students who are already students at Wycombe High School, there's no need to apply because obviously you're already our students. So what we need to know from you is your option choices, and we ask you to give us those by the 9th of January. So we've still got plenty of time for you to discuss those with your subject teachers. Obviously, as I've said, my door is open. Students can come and talk to me about that as well. So we need to have those in at the beginning of January so we can start to work out where those options are going to be and start to think ahead to the timetable. Students who are applying from other schools, you will need to submit an application form to us by the end of January. I think it's around about the 27th. And that online application form is on our website. It does need to be completed by students. There is something on there where students will need to say why Wycombe High, so why they want to join us. So it's really important it's completed by the student themselves. And then we go through a process where we'll contact their current school and ask them for a reference. So information about the students' predicted levels of attainment at GCSE. And from there, we will look at those and the comments made by the teachers, and we will make offers to students round about March, beginning of March time to actually make firm provisional offers to students, and then we normally have students in before the end of the spring term, so we can just kind of fill them in a little bit more about what life will be like at Wycombe High School.
Perfect. And finally, can I ask you a bit about what happens next for Wycombe High School students beyond their sixth form experience? Where do they end up? What do they do?
Gosh, there's so many answers to that question, Edie. For instance, we just had some of our alumni come back and talk to year 11. And in that panel, we had 2 who'd been to university, 1 who'd done an apprenticeship, 1 who'd done a foundation year, not an art foundation year, but a foundation year for another subject to then go into their degree, and 1 person who's gone straight into paid work and is working for criminal investigations with HMRSC. So there's all sorts. The majority of students post 18 are heading off to university, but we have students who also apply to the US for university, so we're processing some applications for those now. We have ones who are heading off for art foundation courses. We have people who are doing apprenticeships, degree level apprenticeships, as I've mentioned. We'll have internship people. We've had people do cordon bleu cookery. So it's basically what is the best thing for you as a young person. That's what we'll help support you with. So there's so many options out there.
And thank you for your questions coming in from home. Please do keep them coming by typing your question using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. So if we're going to finish by around 6 o'clock, we'd better get going. I'm going to hand over to Mrs. Renyard now to get the ball rolling while I go next door and join the others. Mrs. Renyard, over to you.
Thanks, Edie. Well, we've got an excellent number of questions, and I'm going to do my very best to work through all of them, bringing in my colleagues and, more importantly, our students to try and give you some answers so that you can get even more of a sense of what we're all about here at Wycombe High School Sixth Form. I wonder if I could pass to my colleagues firstly. We've got a few questions around the admissions process, specifically the points requirement for entry and predicted grades. And if a student's predicted grades are not meeting the entry criteria, would the application be considered? I wonder if you could talk just a little around that area.
So we have a minimum point score of 48 points to enter the sixth form, and that has to include a grade 5 in English and maths. So that is our minimum entry requirements. We often have students who, according to their predicted grades from their school, perhaps are a few points off. We don't make provisional offers to those students, but simply because we have so many applicants to the school. And so what we do suggest to students is that actually, please do come and see us. So we often do have students who will come and see us on results day, and we will do our very best if there's space to accommodate those students. So unfortunately, there always has to be a line somewhere, but it's never a no. That obviously, if you do meet that criteria on results day, we're more than happy to talk to students on that day.
And Mrs. Ellis, could you say a little as well about the subject entry criteria? So we have the overarching criteria for entry into the sixth form. We've got a question here about the point system to get overall, and then if we get the required grades for individual A levels, but 5s in English and maths, but don't get the total points, does that deny entry? Can you just explain a bit about the relationship between those two things?
So the first thing that we look at is that minimum point score. So it needs to be 48 points. So that is the first thing that we will look at. Once a student has qualified with the 48 points, then we would look at the subjects that student wants to choose. So if they have also met the entry requirements for the subjects that they want to study as well, then that obviously will be an offer to that student. If at the provisional stage where we're making offers, they haven't met the 48 points, again, it would be that letter where we would say, please do come and see us on results day. There are sometimes instances where students have met 48 points but haven't met the entry requirements for the particular course they want to study. And what we will then do is sit and have a conversation with that student about their strengths, so looking at their GCSEs and really trying to ascertain what subjects they could do. And generally we will find a solution. For instance, I had a student this year who came to see us who was desperate to study biology, and she's taken psychology as an alternative and she's absolutely loving it. So we will always have those conversations. We do meet face to face with those students on results day, and we will do our very best to resolve it and find a good outcome for that student.
And I can see actually you've just touched on it there, Mrs. Ellis, that we've got one question about do we speak to the students about their options if they don't get the grades to enter the sixth form? And we've not got in the webinar this evening our head of year 11, but our head of year 11 works very closely with students who may not make the entry criteria to look at what alternatives are available. So that is something that happens as part of the normal progress through year 11. We've also got some questions here, and I wonder if we can bring the students in a little on this as well, about the structure of the offer that we have here at Wycombe High School. So around the sort of 3 A levels as the standard offer, but what does the enrichment part of what you do include? And I wonder, girls, if you could talk a little bit about what that extra bit is on top of the A levels that you do.
Okay. So as I said before, my enrichment was an EPQ, and that was a lot of independent work, and it was around like 7,000 to 10,000 words of just lots of research on any topic that you want. There's so much you can do. You can also do an artifact if you're more creative and artsy. And then it ends with a presentation. And Wycombe High encourages you to do an enrichment because it also helps with you to like build skills for you as a person, as an individual, and also helps with your personal statement. Last night I got an offer from Manchester to do history, and instead of getting AAA, it was then brought down to AAB because of my EPQ. And that's also the same with core maths. If you get, I think it's a grade B in core maths, you have a chance for your uni offer to get decreased. Same with if you do, I think DV Gold is also an option here at Wycombe High for enrichment, as well as Young Enterprise. But there's so many options for enrichment.
Yeah, so on that, so these guys with DPQ, I did core maths, and so there was a question about core maths, and if it's recognised by other unis, and if it supports other A levels, which is definitely something I know about. So core maths, I definitely think supports other A levels. Everyone who did it in my class said it supported their A levels, whether they were doing STEM subjects or whether they were doing, for example, I'm doing business, which does involve maths, also psychology involves maths. And if you're not sure, I didn't want to finish maths at GCSE, then have a whole summer and go into my A levels and start doing some maths again within subjects, having not looked at any since GCSE. And I found core maths was a really interesting way to keep up my maths, and really what we did in that helped with my other subjects, I would say a lot in psychology and business. And if it's recognised by universities, so one of the universities I'm applying to is Bath, and so their entry requirements for that course is AAA, and for that course, Bath take a B in core maths or above to lower entry requirements, potentially to AAB. So it definitely is recognised by universities, not all and not all courses, that would depend, but for me it is, and it definitely helps.
And just talking in terms of kind of how enrichment adds to your timetable, so it'll depend what you choose. So I think for core maths, Grace, you can probably speak more about this, but it's 4 lessons a week, so that does take up a kind of considerable chunk of your unsupervised study periods. But for us, we did the EPQ, and that was 1 kind of seminar session a week, but then of course you're doing your own research, your own writing in your own time, so it does take up some of your time in the first year, but at the end of the day, it's for the greater good, I would say. And then, you know, by the time, if you're doing EPQ by, I think it's Easter, and year 12, you're then kind of free again. And then obviously if you're doing an AS, and that will be by the time you get to year 13, you can solely focus on your A levels.
Thank you ever so much, all of you. That gives a really good insight into some of the enrichment on offer. We've also, Mrs. Ellis, if I could come across to you, got some questions about, you mentioned before when you were talking about the structure of our offer in the sixth form that a minority of students might study 4 A levels rather than 3, which would obviously mean that what they were doing looks slightly different in the week. Could you just sort of outline what the criteria might be for considering that and the benefits? And we do also have a question from a member of our audience as to whether we consider 5 A levels.
I always talk to the students. I mean, universities ask for 3 subjects, so they will only ever make an offer to a student on 3 subjects. If they have done 4, they won't make them a reduced offer on their offer entry requirements if they've done 4. So 3 is what a university is looking for. And what we do sometimes find is that actually a student who's doing 4 might get slightly lower grades across those 4 A levels than they might have done if they're doing 3. So we do recommend, and I think particularly if a student wants to study medicine and is going for a highly competitive course where they will be looking for A stars as part of their entry requirements, we really do recommend that 3 is a good number with an enrichment, because they're using a different sort of skill set. If a student does want to study 4, and there are sometimes reasons, and there is often students who are suitable to do that, we will consider that, but we do need students to attain 68 points across their best 8 GCSEs. And we will ask students to let us know. So it's not part of the option form process. We will actually only ask for 3 options. If they do want to study 4, that is something that we would discuss with them on results day. However, there are a number of students, because we offer further maths as an AS and a full A level subject. Many of the students who actually are doing 4 are doing further maths as their 4th option. And because they're already studying maths and it's a very similar subject, it's effectively like doing 3.5. So, you know, most of the students are doing that. And I think we do have to look at the lifestyle. And I do say to students, you know, it's really important that they have a life as well. And there's a lot to be learned from getting a job and being able to spend time as a young adult with friends and things like that, and being able to excel in the 3 subjects they do. So it's certainly something we will consider, but it's not, I think we do have to look ahead. What we're helping students to do is to achieve highly and to achieve their best. So, and we generally will find that doing 3 with an enrichment gives them a much broader base for success in the future. In terms of doing 5, it was dependent on timetable constraints. We have had a student do that before on one occasion. It's in exceptional circumstances, but again, I would want to speak with that student to really find out why, and if that really is going to suit them and help them to really achieve and to access their future aspirations. So it's certainly something we can talk about, but it's not a typical offer, but that doesn't mean to say it's impossible.
And if I could just jump in quickly, I did actually consider taking 4 A levels in year 11, but I do only do 3, and I think that was the right decision. I was hoping, and luckily I did achieve good grades in my GCSEs, and I think, you know, I'm quite an organised person. I probably could have managed 4 A levels, but it was unnecessary at the end of the day. Like Mrs. Ellis says, you only need 3, and the reason I would have taken a 4th was because I like too many subjects and I just would want to take them all because I enjoyed them, which, you know, of course you're going to enjoy a lot of subjects, but I would say really think hard about the decision you're making, because I'm still I've got aspirations, high aspirations for leaving sixth form with only 3 A levels, and I did an EPQ, which, you know, was enough of a qualification for me. And I think, yeah, I made the right decision. So definitely think about the choices you're making.
And it's a really important choice, isn't it, students? And, you know, you've been there recently, and, you know, you've lived through it. And I can see in the comments, we've got some sort of questions that allude to that, and that due to the timings in year 11 of when you have your mock exams and those sorts of things, it can be quite difficult, depending on when those mock exams fall, to sort of think about what your options are going to be. And I don't know, Mrs. Ellis or Miss Drysdale, if you want to say anything about if a student chooses some options, and then perhaps if things change a little bit later on down the road, and how we support students with that.
It always changes. With the very best intentions, we make decisions in January, and people will change their mind, or they will find out more about a career or a certain subject and so on, and they will change their mind. We do offer students the opportunity to change their options at different points during the course of the year. And obviously on results day, sometimes things have to change. Sometimes people make choices to change there as well. So that's something that we will consider then. And then when students start with us in year 12, we run a shadowing scheme. So sometimes students might have chosen economics and haven't studied economics before, try it and actually think, I'm not quite sure about that. So we do allow students in the first 3 to 4 weeks to be able to try something out and change their options if they wish to. So as long as the decision is locked down really by the beginning of October, there is a lot of flexibility. It's obviously dependent on subjects and so on, and whether there's space, but we do have a number of sets for the most popular choices. So generally we can accommodate those changes that they might wish to make. And we support them to do that.
And we work quite hard to do that, actually. That's something that not every sixth form is able to offer because of the size of our sixth form and because of the way that we structure our timetable. We are able to offer that opportunity to students. We've got a couple more questions around the admissions process. Why 2 deadlines? Do Wycombe High School students have preference over students who might be joining us from another school? I wonder if Miss Ellis or Miss Drysdale, you'd like to take that one.
The reason our deadline for our students is quite early, because our students will be doing their mocks after half term. So we do mocks quite early in this school. So we ask them to use that information to help them to consider what they're going to do next. So really by January, they will have had a parents' consultation, they will have had their mock results and so on, and they have the opportunity to reflect on those. So I think the beginning of January for those students is a good opportunity for them to submit their options. Other schools don't have mock exams quite as early, so some of them will be doing them in January because we have to request references from those other schools. The later application is just to allow those students to have completed those mocks before we start contacting other schools. So there's no preference. It doesn't make any difference. It's just an acknowledgement of that our students have done it, and it enables us to start to think about the timetable. But there's certainly, it doesn't make any difference to external applicants. It's just a timetabling issue.
And how many places are available for external applicants?
So this year we've had approximately 48 students join us. Again, we are flexible because it depends on the subject choices. If everybody wants to do biology, chemistry and maths, sometimes we might not be able to accommodate more than 48. If we have a number of students that suddenly next year decide they want to do history and geography potentially, it just depends on the number of subjects and how it fits in with the timetable. We are keen to grow our sixth form. We're very, very proud of our sixth form and the experience that we offer. So, with the right candidates, we will be flexible. We don't put a number on it. There's not a limit on it. Obviously, if we have the right candidates on the right day and we have spaces in those subjects, then we will make an offer.
Lovely, thank you. And we do have one further question there about the admissions process. Is it managed by the school? Obviously admissions lower down into younger years can often be managed by Bucks County Council. Entry into our sixth form is entirely managed by the school, and there's no involvement from Bucks with the application process. We run that ourselves. Therefore, it's entirely your choice as to how many sixth forms you choose to apply to. It's a difficult situation if students choose to apply for multiple sixth forms, because we model our curriculum based on the options numbers and the students who have told us that they're accepting our offer to study in our sixth form. So there is an element of, please think very carefully about your choice. And, we'd really encourage you to come and visit. I'll tell you about some opportunities to come and visit us in the flesh at the end of this webinar. Find out as much as you can about the school and try to be as sure as you can that you'd like to join us. And that's what we'd urge as far as as far as the admissions is concerned. But let's turn to some of the questions now, move away from admissions for the time being to what the school week is actually like and what that experience is like. And Miss Drysdale, if I could sort of start with you, and then perhaps if we could bring the students in for sort of on the ground experience. We've got several questions around how many hours per subject per week. We've got some things about how many students are going to be in a class with me. I wonder if you could sort of give us a little bit of context around week to week in the sixth form.
Absolutely. So as we've mentioned already, one of the things we do is, because we, unlike some schools, build our timetable around the option choices we've got, that means actually that gives us some flexibility. It also means that obviously until we've got that, we may not know who the teachers are, but typically a student will have 2 subject teachers and they will have 8 hours in their week. So 4 per member of staff is typical. And that will be their basis. So there's 3 of those, but it's not just that. They may well have some timetable time for the Gold DFE. They might well have, they'll have some EPQ teaching as well as time with a mentor who looks after a few students so they can really concentrate on them. They might be doing young enterprise, so that's done more at a different time. And if they're doing, let's see, which one I've forgotten. Girls, which one have I forgotten? The enrichment, you listed them earlier. EPQ, young enterprise. Core maths, as we mentioned, you get your 4 periods for that. Thank you, Grace. So you would have those periods. We would also have, then we've got on Wednesday afternoons, the students have a carousel of activities, and there's a question there about how we keep the young people active. And I might throw that back to the guys in a bit so they can tell you all the different opportunities they've had to be fit and active on a Wednesday period 5. And that rotates, and that also has things about applications. It might have our guest speakers might be coming in then. It also has some wellbeing aspects. We also have for year 13, they have an extra wellbeing timetable lesson in there as well, which is focusing on mental health, resilience, those sorts of things. And depending how a student's timetable is built, how much is structured, how much is not, they will then have a certain number of supervised study periods. And then, as they've also mentioned, some unsupervised study periods where they can use their time more flexibly. So I hope that's got most of those questions. So guys, what sort of things have you been doing on a Wednesday period 5, or have you been fit and active?
Yeah, so Wednesday period 5, like Miss Drysdale said, is the carousel. So you, as the name alludes, you cycle around a few different classes. So at the moment I'm on PE, so that's where the kind of fitness comes into it, but also of course all of our extracurricular sports clubs. So you'll be on each carousel session for almost a half term, but not quite. And then there's also, what do we have? We have first aid, we had a career session, so art, drawing, music, all the things, philosophy, all the things that you might have wanted to take at A-level, but you haven't done them for a few years. So it's quite a nice way to also meet new people as well. And then coming back to the part of the question about class sizes, so I'll kind of use my classes as an example. So they're quite varied really. So one of my subjects is geography. That's not so popular in my year group at the moment, which is unfortunate, but there we are. So there are only 10 people in the year who take geography, which means we're just one very small class. So we all sit in a little horseshoe like a seminar, which is quite nice. And then I also do biology, which is one of the more popular subjects. I think there are 3 classes in our year group. And I think my class last year was about 17 people, and this year is about 23. So it's gone up a bit because of various timetabling, things like that. And then in the middle, I've got English. I think there are maybe 17 of us. So yeah, it really depends on the subjects you take. But again, and that just shows I take English, geography and biology, such a, some might say, strange combination of subjects, but that's because you can pretty much take any combination here, which is really nice.
And then more on time and your timetable and how the kind of day works in the sixth form. So you have 4 lessons a week with your inner subject. 2 in most subjects, there's 2 with one teacher, 2 with another teacher. With business, I have the same teacher for 4 lessons. So you have those timetabled every week consistently. If you do core maths, for example, you'll have 4 for those. If you have EPQ, depending on changes in fortnights and things, with 1. And then apart from that, it's, as Mr. Russell said, a mix of studies and frees. And then how your day goes is very much in between that, up to you. So for example, last year, we've all done very different things extracurricularly ourselves. But last year, for example, I was a core maths subject captain, which didn't involve much in the day. It involved more helping at careers fairs and such. I was a student ambassador, which involved being on reception 1 morning a week, answering the phone, letting people through the gate, that kind of thing. And then also an anti-bullying ambassador, which took up a few lunchtimes and things like that. And then when you come on to SLT, that's more lunchtimes and things like that. So the way you manage your spare time in that time you're given is very much up to you. And you can do as little as much as you want, but there are a lot of opportunities. So I would definitely suggest going with as much as you want one. For example, last week, I was taking a tour around, and I was that evening going to the House of Lords. We were very lucky to be invited. We got a tour and then dinner there, and the girl doing the tour with me, she was doing a presentation to Imperial College London. They were in a competition, which I think they then came 3rd place in, which was really impressive from them. But the enrichment side and how you balance your day and how much you get yourself involved in is very much up to you. So definitely taking all those opportunities while still managing that time is one of the best things about our sixth form, the freedom you have with all of those.
Yeah, I think we sort of that independence, isn't it? You've got that freedom over your time. It's still a full-time education, but you've got that freedom and that choice, and well, you're taking full advantage of it, and great examples of everything that you've all been involved in. Mrs. Ellis, we've the arts as well are sort of really well represented, aren't they? And opportunities specifically to sort of be involved in the arts and media. I mean, obviously we're live on our webinar this evening, and I'm sure lots of people watching have watched Wycombe High TV and our various other media things that are produced.
I mean, I'm one of the members of the art department, and you know, the arts are always at the heart of everything that I think about and do. And the, you know, it's one of the reasons I love Wycombe High, is because it embraces every aspect of the arts fully and celebrates everything that every art discipline in an equal way. We have very close links, the arts between drama, art and music and so on, and we support and work together. We have an arts award evening at the end of every academic year to celebrate students' talent and achievements within the arts as well. We work closely with the department, with the technology department as well. So at GCSE we offer textiles and graphics, and at A-level we offer product design. We have taken textiles under the umbrella of the arts in the last year, and so the current art syllabus is using art and design as a main focus. So students who are interested in textiles have the opportunity to study that discipline through the art and design syllabus. So the arts are really, really important to all of us. I know it's not just me. I know sometimes the students think that I always talk about it, but I know all staff right across the school really enjoy what the arts brings to the school. And you've only to walk around when you come do a tour of the school. You'll see the artwork on the walls. You'll see from the concerts and so on that we have. We really do embrace the arts fully, and we have a number of students every year who go on to destinations, Guildhall, Trinity Laban, University of Arts London and so on, go on to very prestigious institutions to take that talent further. So we're very proud of that.
I think we have a number of students representing Wycombe High School in the John Hampden Grease production that's taking place later this year as well. So we do try to collaborate across the road as well, wherever possible. Some questions we've got here this evening, very sort of legitimately concerned about who the teaching staff might be at A-level. It's obviously very, very important 2 years, as the students have alluded to, you know, one of the strengths of the sixth form being that student-teacher relationship. But are all the subject teachers for A-level sort of well established, subject experts, graduates in their subject area? And where a teacher is a new recruit to Wycombe High School, how are they supported to be able to teach, you know, our most able students in years 12 and 13? Ms. Drysdale, could I come to you?
Well, in terms of supporting staff in you, first of that, part of it is how we work our recruitment process. We will always be looking for those very high caliber candidates, and that's certainly the level of staff we have is really high caliber. They know their subjects inside out. If someone was new to A-level, they will be supported by their subject lead. Through that, there's always a very defined program. The students will talk about how they know the structure of what's coming up, and they can pre-read as well. That works exactly for the staff as well. So there's always that support network of established staff who can support them if they're absolutely new to the profession. There's a mentoring program for that and time for that. We also have a training program for those guys across the whole school as well. So the caliber of staff really is incredibly impressive. We've just been completing lesson observations around the school, and it's always so much fun going in and seeing one's colleagues delivering things and going, oh, that's a really good idea from politics that I can use in my biology lesson. And there's just so much high caliber stuff going on. In terms of, are they known? Again, because we will be timetabling once we know options, we know who our possibilities are, but we'll be building the timetable then. And that means actually, there was a question earlier about clashes. That means at that point, we can make sure we're avoiding clashes in the absolute main because we're working around the option choices. So yes, I would say high caliber staff. Girls, will we agree?
Can I just add, the other thing we have is a lead practitioner. So both lower down the school and in Key Stage 5, we have a lead practitioner for teaching and learning, whose responsibility is to make sure that teaching and learning is of the highest caliber across every subject area. They're involved in lesson observations, but we also have quite clear criteria of what teachers have to include in an A-level lesson and how an A-level lesson has to be conducted. So there is support, but there's also scrutiny at every level to make sure that students do have the best possible experience.
Yeah, so we'd agree with that. And I think there was a question about blending in with the school and blending in with your teachers at the same time. And just to brush on that, I think that's not a problem at all. There's never a teacher that's not going to be on with the class. They all really care about their subject, and you'll find a lot of the time the teachers are just as excited to talk about that subject as they are for you to be there. So I would definitely say blending into the school with blending into teachers comes together, and I don't think that's ever a problem or anything anyone's ever noticed. We do a lot of work. There's a head of transfers of the SLT, and the teachers actually probably she always says one of the best assets that the school has when it comes to joining the school, because they're so supportive. And then just
Well, I wonder actually, because we had a question around that, around students who are new into the sixth form, and that sort of idea around, you know, how well integrated are they? We obviously, the four of you here with us this evening are representing our student leadership structure, but there are significantly more of you, aren't there? When I joined you for a meeting the other day, we had a very long table stretched out, didn't we, in the middle of the sixth form block, to fit all of us around it. But could you talk a little bit about, you know, the opportunities for students who are new to school, and sort of how we work as a school community to make sure that transition is really seamless, you know, from a student point of view?
What really helps is that we have a lovely Teams page for our year group, where you'll have your head of year constantly pinging at you, giving you all the latest updates, all the latest opportunities, and as well as our own team page for our year group, we have, so it's either a 12 plus or a 13 plus, and it will provide you with loads of opportunities within your subjects to extend further. And I guess last year I was deputy house captain, and anyone can apply to that. It's not at all limited to people that have been at Wycombe High since year 7. Anybody can apply. As well as that, we also have duty prefects, and there's loads of other opportunities that can steadily filter down from the SLT all the way through all through years, actually, not just sixth form.
Yeah, like Charlotte said, we have a designated head of transfers that I touched on earlier. So this year we have the fabulous Tracy, who's done an incredible job, and she's just run a transfers lunch. So the head of transfers really makes sure there's a community, first of all, between all the students who do decide to come and join Wycombe High, and they have opportunities to meet each other, and they have opportunities to meet with the head of transfers who's been there and done that and is there for advice and support. And then she is there to make sure they're all integrating really well. Any support for them can really come from that. And that's a really fabulous asset, I'd say, that we have.
Yeah, and in addition to that, especially in year 12, I remember that I think quite a few of us who transferred from Wycombe High from year 11 to year 12 got to be a year 12 buddy. So we were buddied with one of the new transfer students, and we just helped them show around the school, spend lunchtime with them to ensure that they are properly integrated and they're not separated, and make sure that they feel included with us.
Yeah, sorry, go on, Edie.
Sorry, just to add one more thing. We also have, for those of you who are thinking of joining us, a vertical tutoring system. So our form time, rather than just being one year group, is usually 3 or 4 students from each year group in one class. So that means if you're joining the school in year 12, then there will be 2 other year 12s, usually who have been at the school already. So you're not all just put into a new class with all the new people. You are put in with people who have been here since year 7 or been here since year 9, or maybe, the whole range of year 12 and year 13 and all the years together. So essentially in every part of the school day, there's time to meet new people and really be included in the Wycombe High community.
And Mrs.
Mrs. Drysdale, cutting there. We were doing so well so far, weren't we? To not
I know.
each other. What I would say is we talk to our students who have transferred into Wycombe High School a lot about how brave that decision is. And for those of you who are logged on this evening who are currently studying at other schools, it's quite the magnitude of the decision of choosing a new school at such an important part of your school career is one that we don't take lightly. We work exceptionally hard to make sure that every student who starts with us in year 12 feels part of the Wycombe High School family. And it's, we don't take for granted what that feeling is like when you look around and you don't recognise the faces of your teachers, and you don't quite know exactly which one might be the best one to go to for advice and support. And we try to anticipate those feelings of newness and, the anxiety that can come with that, so that we can really make sure that those support mechanisms are in place. And hopefully, through the course of this evening, you've sort of come to learn a little bit more about how we do that and what our ethos is here. And if you're able to visit us during the school day, you'll be able to see that in action too, I hope. Now, I'm very conscious of the time and that we have some questions we've not answered. So I wonder if I could just steer the conversation around to post 18, because we have several questions here which touch on this. So the idea of support for a university application, be that to a Russell Group University, an Oxbridge University, another university, the idea of industry experience, and what careers exposure do the students have, and the idea of something other than university study, an apprenticeship route, for example. Miss Drysdale, could I bring you in there?
Absolutely. So we have a dedicated careers program that the students get bi-weekly, and we do tailor that to each year group, so that when the students are in the sixth form, that's very much looking at those post-18 options, but all the options. There's also very much thinking about beyond their post-18, so also about what careers they might want to do, those industry placements. So all the students have an opportunity to do a week's work experience during their time. So we actually dedicate that week to that, and the guys will be able to tell you a bit more about what they did if we have time. So they have that week, but they also have our case program. And so our case program is built in a way basically for the students to build up a portfolio of experiences they've had that show their transferable skills. And the E of case stands for employability. So that's things like you may be doing some work experience, you may have worked in a local pharmacy, or you might be going off and doing something one summer, or you've taken on those super curricular activities like competitions that the students were talking about. And then in terms of actually gearing up post-18, that very much starts, as soon as the summer of year 12 exams, we're sort of straight into that. We will have actually started earlier. We have an evening where we present to parents as well and talk about the different pathways and things like finance. And we have guest speakers coming in for the parents. And we will also have that for the students. So they will have alumni coming back and they'll have guest speakers coming in too. And then as I said, it's summer of year 12. It's very much thinking about the personal statement, particularly for the guys who are early entry, which some of that team are, because I've read their personal statements just recently. We've just processed over 50 odd early entry applicants. So there's very much support for the personal statement writing and the application and where to apply to. And what will be coming up next for those guys, they're just doing, some of them are doing their assessment tests if they need to do those, say for Oxbridge or for law or for medicine, and they've had support for those leading up to them with subject specialists. They've got mock interviews coming up next half term, those ones who have got this Oxbridge, look at them smiling there, they're looking forward to that, I can tell. So that's great fun, I love doing those. And then again, once they've got through that process, it's where the offers are coming through and what's the next step for them. And so there's all sorts of opportunities for them to take those next steps in an informed way. That's what we always want our students to be making, to make informed decisions that fit for them and therefore support them to make that pathway work for them. And that's true even when you're thinking about options. So there's a couple of questions there about how do we pick which A-levels if we've got a particular degree in mind. And UCAS can work well there for you to help sort of work backwards from. And if you've got a school program like Unifrog or something like that, or SUCA or something like that, that can be helpful as well to look at those option choices. And talk to subject staff as well. What could work well if I'm thinking of this pathway? A lot are very open, but there are some that are particular.
Can I just add to that, because obviously having come from an arts background, 30 odd 40 odd years ago, that wasn't necessarily particularly what some people thought I should do. I am a massive advocate for whatever a student wants to do, we will support them to do that. So if they want to go and do a cordon bleu cookery course, for instance, which we have had in the past, we will help and support that student to do that. So we will support all ends of the spectrum. So if students want to apply to Oxford and Cambridge, of course we have programs to support that, but whatever a student aspires to, it is very much within our mantra that is what we would do to support, and we would take every step to help them in that process.
Now, I am very conscious of time, but I'm just also aware, just squeeze in one more area of questions around sixth form facilities. And what facilities do the sixth form have available to them? And Mrs. Ellis, we have updated a little, haven't we, our sixth form facilities over the summer holiday of this year, which the students are able to take advantage of at the moment, and we sort of under review as to how we can develop further. But do you just want to give an outline of what the sixth form have access to?
Yeah. So over the last few years, we have actually had a programme of refurbishment. We have a fabulous silent study space now, which is frequented by students. We've had year 11 students in there today preparing for their mock exams, which is great. So during the course of the day, that is a study space. So it's somewhere where students know that they can go and work in silence and they can get their heads down and get on with some work. We have collaborative study areas as well that students can book so that they can work as a group, and we have whiteboards in there so they can actually be working actively on problems and so on in a collaborative environment. We have refurbished our sixth form cafe, which is only available to sixth formers, obviously, and staff, and that is now upstairs in the common room, which is now back in action after COVID. So we have a space where students can relax, they can buy refreshments and so on, and again study in a collaborative environment. And we have a lecture theatre that we use for lessons, but students can also use that during the course of the day. We have lovely outside spaces that we will continue to look at how we can develop. We are a growing sixth form. It's not always possible to have to give everybody a separate room and a separate space for their friendship group, but we do work together. And I think, obviously we encourage students to go out at lunchtime to get some fresh air and to be parts of clubs and things like that. So there's lots of facilities. If we had endless amounts of money, we would potentially do much more refurbishment, but obviously within the means that we have, we're doing the very best we can to keep reviewing the spaces and making them fit for purpose. But we're very proud of what we've got at the moment. It's certainly better than it was, isn't it, girls?
Thank you, Mrs. Ellis. Well, I'm very conscious of the time and running slightly over, but also that we have a number of questions which we haven't managed to get to this evening. So as promised at the start of the webinar, we will take note of those questions and we will pop something onto our website so that for those of you who have posted questions which we haven't managed to directly answer this evening, you will be able to find the answers there. So that's at wycombehighschool.com, and all of the information about the applications process, the points required, the subject entry requirements can all be found on our website, including an application form for students currently studying at other schools. We do have a couple of other opportunities coming up in the diary. If you are a student currently studying in another school, you can book a tour of the school during the school day, so you can see us in operation. We really encourage you to do so. It's the best time to see the school. It's when you can actually get into some sixth form lessons and see the sixth form block being used by our students. And you can do that via the link on the website. If you are the parent of a student who's currently studying at Wycombe High School in Year 11, on the 30th of November, we'll be hosting an afternoon tea and tour of the school for students who are currently on roll. And you've been sent some information about that via school comms already. So if you're interested to attend, and again, we would really encourage you to do so, then you can book via that link that's been sent home to you. And that will be an opportunity as well to meet with members of staff and also to meet with our students and to have any further questions answered that you might have. Now, we do have just a comment in the chat feed here, which seems like a good one to end on. Massive thanks to all involved, and I would absolutely echo that. Big thanks to my colleagues, but particularly thank you to Grace, Janani, Charlotte and Edie for all you have done to prepare for tonight, and obviously being here this evening as well, and contributing to those answers for everyone's questions. A major shout out to the head girl and her deputies. Well done. So that seems a fitting end to the evening, and thank you ever so much for logging in. It's wonderful to virtually meet you, and I look forward to meeting you in person over the coming weeks. Take care. Good night.